Definitely. We have Chris now too. So
Okay.
Chris, I'll start real quick. Just on behalf of the section, just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who's on this call. We're very excited as a section to have partnered this upcoming year with Clipp'd and their technology and what they can do in respect to the teaching and coaching of the game of golf and how they can improve people's golf games and their interest in the game of golf and what they want to achieve as they continue down their path in this game, in this great game. And so we have, three wonderful individuals on the call with us today that are going to do a lot of the presenting. Chris Foley, locally, who many of you on the call know, a teacher in the Minnesota Section PGA, a great PGA professional, introduced us to this group of people, and we just think there's a lot of opportunities, like we said, with this product and with the company itself. So Chris, I'll turn it back over to you to do the formal introductions, but on behalf of the Minnesota Section PGA, we're very excited about this opportunity and this partnership.
Yeah, thanks, John, and thanks for everybody who's joining us this morning. And I got introduced to Clip probably about 2 years now from John Boykin, a good friend of mine from Atlanta, who is on the call, and been part of their innovation council now. And as soon as John told me about Clipp'd, I got very excited about it. And I really think it's kind of a game changer for both coaches and players. And it really brings together everything you can think of in golf performance, and allows you to connect much better with the player. From a standpoint of coaching, the hardest thing for us is, we see a player on the lesson tee, and most of the time we don't have the ability to see what they're doing on the golf course or in their own practice. And Clip gives us the ability to bring, their on-course performance, how they're practicing, what they're doing in practice, and really formulate a better game plan on how to help the student have more success on the golf course. So I'm excited everybody's here this morning, and excited to hear more about Clipp'd here.
Thank you, Chris. You've essentially done my job for me, so we'll end the webinar there. No, much appreciated. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Piers Parnell. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Clipp'd. Very excited to have you on this morning. This is the first of a number of webinars that we'll be doing within the section, and the first of a whole host that we're doing with other section partners that we've been lucky enough to build really great relationship with already. I just want to touch on a couple of high-level points before we dive into the product. I'm joined here to my left by David Ford, who is our sort of global head of coach and player network, and hopefully in time you will get to know him very well. I think just to take us back in time, we've been on this journey now for some years. Ed, my co-founder, and myself, we met playing varsity golf at Oxford many moons ago, and then reconnected again through our passion for the game. We reconnected because the world has changed. No one can avoid the fact that technology has impacted every activity near as I can make out that we are involved in some way, shape, or form. And obviously, as that has transformed the world, it's also started to transform sports, and now more specifically golf. And it was looking at that we identified an enormous opportunity, and specifically an opportunity for us to provide a platform for coaches, instructors, and players to accelerate learning. And so I guess the why is very much that, to Chris's point, more and more it's the case that you're investing in technology to use on the lesson tee. More and more players are investing in technology on the golf course, whether that's a GPS-derived technology like Garmin or Arcos or ShotScope, Bushnell, or it's a manual entry system like 18 Birdies or the Grint, all of which offer different levels of fidelity. On the S&T, of course, we've got household names like TrackMan and Foresight and FlightScope, Swing Catalyst, and the list goes on. And effectively, the tournament driving range that we see week in, week out on the PGA Tour is now very closely matched by facilities that you will inhabit every day. And I guess this is where other sports, and one of our inspirations, in terms of other businesses, this is where cycling and running was a little over a decade ago. And a company called Strava came along and essentially realized that there was this enormous universe of technologies out there being used by cyclists and runners, and there needed to be a central source of truth for that. A little over 100 million users later, and an annual 1.8 billion activities logged, and Strava is literally at the heart of a cyclist or a runner's life. And so I think really to try and define the problem, particularly with this audience in mind, is that collectively there's been a significant amount of time, money, energy spent on technology, on trying to understand technology, but there remains this enormous challenge of how do we get the most from it, both as instructors, but also as players, seeking out your expertise and your insight to help us get better, which is what fundamentally millions of golfers around the world spend their lives trying to do, is to hit better golf shots. And so the solution that we have alighted on is, in the one hand, extremely complex, which we don't need to bore you with, but on the other hand, is rooted in this idea that how can we help the instructor get the most out of the technology? How can we connect them, as Chris said, to your students, to your clients? How can we start to build a much more valuable environment and ecosystem for everyone to engage in? And that really is sort of why we have spent so long building out the business, building out an incredible team of engineers, of data scientists, designers, building partnerships with coaches, with teaching facilities, with college programs, national squads, and the list goes on almost ad infinitum. Is that essentially our mission is to help golfers get better faster. And that might sound somewhat grandiose, or maybe it sounds a little bit like other things. I guess the way in which we go about doing that and how things work are the real differentiators. Is that we take that disjointed landscape and we pull the data in from all of those different sources and essentially put that through a sieve so that we can deploy next level data science into a new understanding and present everything in a, hopefully you'll agree when you see it, a beautifully designed, intuitive, user-friendly platform. And ultimately, our goal is to help redefine your understanding and a player's understanding of what good looks like. Essentially a golfer's DNA, leveraging all the technology that's out there, leveraging all the data that currently sits kind of left on the side after a lesson or left on the side after a round of golf. And that then leads us to almost the ultimate opportunity, which is to create through the technology that we've built a completely bespoke, personalized plan and feedback loop between yourselves as instructors and your players to implement. Essentially a blueprint or a roadmap for you to facilitate accelerated learning, better golf that's tailored to that individual. And I guess that connection to between you and a player and the player to their game also ultimately leads to something that's so inherently vital to the game that we all love, and that you have built careers in, is that it's a very sticky game. The relationships that we all make playing golf and spending time in and around the facilities where we play and engage with one another is so vital. And so we've already built out within our beta test group a very vibrant Clipp'd community. It's a community that's self-serving in terms of asking questions. It's a community that's designed for coaches as well as for players. And we ultimately come to this single key fact is that we want people to play better. We want people to play better and have the opportunity to play better because they're using Clipp'd, and that's the feedback that we're getting from all of our instructors, all of our partners, all of our players that are testing it. And I think that leads to a single ultimate goal, which is a higher degree of engagement and fundamentally, when it comes to you and your business, that increased activity, that increased visibility on the course and off the course, bridging the gap that Chris described in one platform, means that as it relates to the insights, it means that you're also not just connected to your players, but you're able to immediately understand each of your players and their skill level. And so in ensuring that connection and ensuring that your ability to communicate with your players and to actively impose yourself in a very positive way into their golfing journey, as and when you see them in the digital space, it's not just the case that you're going to have to wait for them to come back to you in the professional shop or as you pass on the lesson to ask how's it going. You will already know. And so ultimately, the connection leads to more engagement, the improvement leads to more activity, the activity leads to a call to action that's very positive, and it provides also a single proof point that you are doing the best possible job that you can do, which is your students are getting better. And I think that is the ultimate validation that we hear day in, day out from instructors and from players, is that they're getting better, they're having more fun, and we've built a technology that we believe will not just encourage that opportunity, but enable it for millions of golfers around the world. And these conversations, these webinars are so important to us to start to introduce people at a much larger scale than we have done to date to our technology. And with that, I'd like to hand over to David, who's going to actually take you through the platform and build into some of the detail of the high level introduction.
Thank you, Piers. So as Piers says, I will now take you through the sort of demo of the platform. You don't really need to know a great deal about what we're doing to be able to get good value from Clip, but there is sort of one sort of fundamental way in the way we measure performance and quality that I'd just like to sort of ground you in, so you've got an understanding when I show you the platform as to what everything means. And really, as Piers mentioned, it's about having a true understanding of golfers and the way they play the game. So we've looked at, okay, how can we present this in a really simple and intuitive way, but how can we deliver metrics that do give you that true understanding? So what we've arrived at is sort of two measures, really. We have something called player quality. We have something called shot quality. Now, shot quality is really understanding the quality of any given shot, whether it's played on the golf course or off the golf course, on a simulator, on a launch monitor, or just collected manually through data. So it's important to obviously deliver the context back in. Now, Strokes Gained has done a tremendous job of understanding performance in golf, but even Mark Brody himself has sort of said there are certain areas that are missing, and so it's not sort of a conclusive measure of performance. Now, what we've been able to do is build metrics which include the important elements: the distance, the lie, the difficulty of a golf course, weather conditions, ground conditions, and these are all adding over time. But we have to build a robust system in order to be able to add in these other contexts. And so we have shot quality, which is the core of everything we have. Now, the way we measure shot quality is on a scale of 0 to 200. Whereby 0 represents the worst possible scenario, it's hitting it out of bounds. 100 would represent the PGA Tour average, sort of expected outcome for a PGA Tour player, and then 200, the perfect shot, a hole-in-one or holing out from the fairway. So it's very easy in a single number to understand the quality of any given shot. And just by way of sort of providing an example, to that point, I will show you this hole, which is the 18th hole at Sunnydale, on which John Boykin was lucky enough to play a couple of weeks ago when he was over here visiting us. But we sort of see these two different scenarios. On the left, we have a beautiful sunny day, temperature in the 80s, light winds, very rare over here in the UK. On the right, we have cold, windy, wet day. Two very different situations where the tee shot is hit to exactly the same position in the fairway, 288 yards. So it's a good shot. Now, Strokes Gained looks at these two different scenarios and tells you they're equally good, those two shots. They both gain 0.16 of a shot. But with our metrics, we actually can now factor in these different weather conditions. So we can separate the two shots and say, well, the shot on the left was a very good shot. It took more skill, given the conditions, to execute the shot on the right. And so you can see in the yellow circle there, whereby we scored the shot in easier conditions at 109 in terms of shot quality, the shot on the right in harder conditions 117. What this allows us to do is really understand how a golfer plays in various conditions, and we can actually then look at how that rolls up from just shot level, again from on or off the golf course, different scenarios, shot level in different parts of the game, so whether that's off the tee, approach, around the green and putting, and then roll those up into understanding the player as a whole. So you can see here now in the platform, we represent these areas: yellow off the tee, green is approach, red around the green, and the purple is putting. So we can break down every area of the game and even more so underneath that, but end up with this number within the circle, a whole number of blue, which is our player quality. So very easy to understand, hopefully for everyone on the call, in that single number, and understand what good looks like for every individual player and chart progress over time. So it's important to obviously ground you in these metrics. And now as I go into the platform, you will see them, and hopefully everything will now make sense. So where we are now is live, within the Clipp'd platform. And having worked with hundreds of the best coaches around the world, Chris included, we've heard feedback as to what's going to be useful for instructors, what sort of information they want to see. So here we have a dashboard of players who have collected their data in a number of different ways. Some have been using GPS watches, some have been using manual stats platforms like a Golf Stat Lab, for example, and they've also been recording tests on TrackMan. They've been doing fitness exercises, any number of exercises off the golf course, but we can represent it and present it back in a way that's very consistent. So as we look at this dashboard, at a glance, we can see each player's quality within the blue circle, and then each part of their game off the tee, approach, around the green and putting broken down. So it's very easy at a glance to understand the skill level of every player. And it's important to say that this is a combination of all the data we have on every player. So this is really a sort of predictive measure of actually what we would expect to see the next time this player goes out to play a round of golf. And there's a number of different ways to view this. So, we see each of the parts of the game represented here. Underneath, we show the activities a player has been taking part in. So the dark grey bars are rounds of golf. The light grey bars are off-course activities. So as I said, could be tests, fitness. There's different ways to look at this. We could look at how a player is trending over a period of time. And something that certainly came from a lot of feedback was wanting to really get an understanding of how a player is trending and what should be the most sort of important areas to act upon as a coach. And so this is completely objective data based on what the player has been up to. And so it's very easy to just see where a player is trending, which areas of the game a player is trending in. So green represents a positive trend. The deeper the color, the more significant the trend, and then red, a negative trend. And hopefully when you have players on here, they're not going too deep in the red. But what it enables us to do, and you as instructors, is to be able to dive straight in there and operate, rather than operate off subjective information that you may get from students as to what they feel like they should work on. Objective information that means that you're being more efficient, you're able to identify the areas to focus on, and in turn get better results. So it's about giving you a deeper understanding and enabling you to do your best work and do what you're experts at. So from here we can dive into any one of these players and learn a bit more. So if I just sort of click on Corey Patton here, for example, this is the player dashboard. So every player would at the moment land on this page. So they have their player quality score here and each part of their game represented in these big numbers in the circles here. So pretty easy to digest. And what this sort of dashboard home screen does is give a pretty high level view of the player's game. So we continue to use traditional metrics, as you will see here. We also show the activities as we've just seen before. Now, something I will touch on in a little bit more detail soon is this what to work on. And so we look at really the DNA of each player and what drives performance for them. So we can surface up the areas of priority for each individual player. But like I said, I will sort of come back onto that in a little bit more detail. And as I scroll down, we have trend lines here. And really, this is a sort of a system to be able to give you, that objective data to help that decision support system that you have and ask good questions. What has happened at this point in time for this player, and see these trends and hopefully point to upward ticks based on your interactions with the player. Because after all, as an instructor, your intention is to get players better and understand how your involvement is impacting them. As I open up approach here, we can see these bars represent different distances the player is playing from. So we can see in Corey's sort of data here that this 120 to 140 isn't sort of reaching the same peaks as other areas. So it's very quick to identify areas where there may be opportunities. Now, all of this data arrives in the system. We're not trying to sort of add to the workload of players. It's very easy for them to integrate the data sources. So whether that's a GPS watch or connected grips, they would go into their profile, connect their account, and then every time they play a round of golf or they do a test, it gets pulled into Clipp'd. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to get the data in, and obviously all of that data helps us to come up with these numbers and understand the player to a greater degree. And all of these activities we can find up here. If I just click on activities here, so we can look at this in a number of different ways, but we can see here from Corey that we have a combination of rounds of golf. We've got Swing Catalyst screencast in there. We've got a golf lesson in here, even off-course putting tests. So these are really easy to add in, and for the cases of lessons, a player can just come up here, add an activity, and they can put notes and videos in there, all of which are very easily searchable through the keywords up here. So things aren't just lost through writing them in a book. They're always useful to the player. And obviously, when you see an activity as a coach, giving you the ability to interact with the player, give positive affirmation, help, if you see them doing a drill, for example, as to how they're getting on or how they may improve that. So now, if I look at a particular round of golf, and we'll look at this round of 79 that Corey shot, we have a summary of the performance of the score, these traditional metrics, and then a summary view of each part of his game, how he performed, and shot quality as well. Now, this is another measure of how he's performed in this round, and it goes back to what we were talking about just before. And it's really looking at all of the shots he's played in that round and how he performed, rather than just being judged by the score, which could have been skewed by one or two bad holes. This is a much more sort of level and objective view of the way he's played in this round of golf. So now, as I click on this, we can see a scorecard view, and it's often been said that the scorecard never paints pictures. Well, we're hopefully starting to do that now. So you can, at a glance, see obviously how he scored, but as I click on a hole, each individual shot is in here and scored in terms of shot quality. Now, in this hole in particular, we can see that this second shot, with a 7-iron was really the culprit for for producing that bogey. And anytime a player is on here and has played a particular course where they played multiple times, we will see a scoring history here. So this may be a common occurrence, maybe an issue with the hole rather than any sort of technical issue. So again, giving you an opportunity to engage in that discussion. And something that Piers and Chris touched on before was the way we're approaching things. We're spending a lot of time understanding the way instructors work and what they want to see, and players as well. Now, something that really came out of the feedback we got from players was this round insights. There were other parts of the platform that showed certain areas, and they wanted to see that for every round they played. So what we've done here is sort of continue from this summary with a number of visuals which help understand the round of golf. So from things like identifying the best 3 shots, the worst 3 shots as well within the round, but also plotting every single shot the player has played in that round. And you'll notice as I hover over a bar, it'll give a little bit more information as to the detail around that shot. So we may see through this tracking certain ebbs or flows within a round of golf. People like myself and Piers who are unfit, we don't drink enough water on a golf course, we don't eat. Quite often we see this sort of drop off towards the last 6 holes. Players don't often believe it when you tell them these are important things, but now it gives you the opportunity to point to certain examples, and we've certainly had that with a number of the players we've been working with. And even if you want to highlight one area of their game, let's look at the putting. And as I just scroll down, you can see on the left-hand side here, we break down the round of golf into areas of quality of shots, really high quality shots, good shots, kind of less than good, and certainly in terms of these elite players, and then poor shots. So it's very easy to just sort of have a snapshot as to how the players performed in that sense. And then as I go across here, we have a breakdown of off the tee. What was the tendency? How far was this player hitting it? The same for approach. So very much driven by visuals, but hopefully giving you the opportunity to very quickly understand the way a player has performed in a round of golf. And in fact, any given activity as they've engaged in them, because you can jump in and look at those activities, engage with the player, and really sort of strengthen those connections that you have with players. Now, something we've recently added in is this what to work on feature, which is really, it's intended as a really strong guide for both players and instructors as to how can we be most efficient with the time we have. And it's looking at really the DNA behind how the player performs. What are the drivers of scoring for these players? And so we can see, for Corey, approach play is a huge driver of scoring. So when he plays well, approach is absolutely essential. But when he's performing poorly, scoring poorly, that's an area which is really sort of driving that and letting down. So how we look at this is, every player is completely unique, and there's no sort of perfect makeup to this. It's really about how you play the game of golf. But as we scroll down, you can see every area of the game is sort of listed in here in terms of, well, 3 dimensions really. We look at the importance of that area of the game to that player, so the importance to scoring, the opportunity, which is us looking at how the player is performing at this point in time against how they previously performed. So the bigger the percentage, kind of the bigger the distance from their peak performance. And then we look at a trend, is the player trending up, is the player trending down? We can see the quality here. And what this will do is it will obviously surface areas that provide those opportunities, but it also highlights superpowers that are non-negotiable. You need to work on this if you want to continue performing to a certain level. And this options down the left here really drives the extra information that we see on the right hand side here. So I'll give you an example of a scenario, and this is with Corey's data here in mind. He's a good player within this distance, 140 to 180 yards. He's improving, but he has actually been better in the past. But Corey, having caught up with him a couple of weeks ago, we spoke with him, and he saw this because we'd only released it just then. He saw this just the day before he went to play a tournament round, and he didn't really have this understanding of his game. He was quite surprised, but then actually he dived into the detail, and what surprised him even more was this fact that, you know, while he's good at 140 to 160 yards, he hits, you know, 66% of fairways, 66% of greens, sorry. But from the fairway, where the lies are generally good, but you don't have complete control, they're sometimes uneven, he was hitting 75% of the greens. But from the tee, where he had complete control, he was only hitting 61% of the greens. And so, you know, this got him thinking that, you know, quite often these holes, he was only hitting 9-iron, 8-iron, 7-iron. You know, was he being too aggressive on those holes? You know, that was one thing. He also reflected the fact that he never hits a golf ball off a tee when he practices. So he never practices hitting shots off, you know, off a tee with a 9 or an 8-iron. And so, you know, he didn't have a chance to practice that area of his game. But what he did was he was able to sort of take it onto the golf course and help it sort of guide the way he approached those holes. And actually, you know, amazingly, this was his next round of golf, the spring medal round. And if we look at the round insights, you know, without changing anything sort of technically, he just changed his approach. He actually scored, you know, he had 3 threes and a 2 on the par 3s. And he reflected that actually it was just a much more conservative approach. He gave himself more opportunity to at least have a putt at the 2, but also eliminated those, you know, those higher scores, the 4s and 5s from it. So it's just a sort of indicator that as a sort of decision support system, it helps to guide practice, but also helps to, you know, a player's understanding of how they should, you know, approach playing a golf course. And certainly, you know, when we build Clipp'd and we continue to build it, you know, our focus is really on how can we help a player to understand their game better, and how can we help a coach to understand a player's game better, so that a coach can perform as well as they can and, you know, deliver the value that they want to. You know, we're here really trying to provide tools for coaches and players, and, you know, this has been a sort of a whistle-stop tour of the platform, which, you know, hopefully has made perfect sense to you. Now, following on from this webinar, we'll give all of you access to a demo account. We'll invite you into our community so you can continue to learn. And as Piers mentioned, we will sort of be delivering a few more webinars throughout the year as well. But certainly it would be great to sort of pass over to Chris as to, you know, the value he sees that, you know, he's got from Clipp'd and the value sort of going forward. And then, you know, once sort of Piers has closed out, we'd love to hear any questions from anybody and really help your understanding, and look forward to, you know, sharing the rest of our journey with all of you.
David, thanks, David. Some new things in there that I haven't seen yet, so it's great stuff.
Always evolving, Chris.
I know it. I love it. And that's one of the great things about Clipp'd for everybody that's online. I mean, they're constantly looking for coaches' feedback, players' feedback, and then incorporating it into their, you know, the platform. So, but I think, you know, the value of this is that, you know, so many times, I'm sure all of the coaches on the line, so many times players really have no understanding of where their games are truly at. And if, you know, like me, I have a hard time getting off the lesson tee. So I can't go follow a player during a round of golf or at a tournament. So I just have control when I'm on the tee with what they're doing and how they're doing it. And so having the ability to see, you know, exactly where their game is at from round to round and where the trends are, that ability makes it so much easier to gear their approach to how they should play, how they should practice. And the example of, you know, on the tee box where you would think off the tee where you got a perfect lie, balls on the tee, you have all total control, that those would be your approach play would be significantly better on in that case. But you know, if you haven't, if you didn't see that in insight, you wouldn't know that. So it just, again, like David said, without changing the golf swing or doing anything differently other than understanding your approach, you can have a huge impact. So I just think what Clipp'd has is really a game changer.
Thank you, Chris. That's very kind. I mean, you will appreciate, and hopefully those on the call for the first time will appreciate that. You know, it's been a long journey to get to this point, to this degree of fidelity and hopefully functionality and utility. And obviously, we thank you first and foremost for your continued support and for joining us on this, our first webinar with the section. You know, I think that idea, that notion, the reality of the fact that we are kind of, while we think we're a long way in, this is actually us taking our first tentative steps into the much wider world beyond our beta test group, which, while extensive throughout the States, the UK, Europe, we obviously have very big and substantial ambitions for how we can scale this and take this game changer technology, as Chris called it, to the mass market. We have to do that the right way. We believe fundamentally in collaboration and feedback and listening. We're not here to dictate to anyone. We're here to tap into your understanding, your expertise, and to try and assimilate that into the platform. And as I said, just to recap, you know, obviously we work, you know, to that point of collaboration. We now work with many different technologies, many different incumbents within the game. We have more conversations, negotiations, and meetings than I care to bore you with as to how we go about building out those relationships, but we do so very painstakingly, and we will continue to add to our partnerships within hardware space, technology space, data space, and beyond, to make sure that the value that you get ultimately from being part of the Clipp'd community and the benefit that we hope and aim and aspire to bring to your business is always at the very optimum level that it can be at any given point in time. And you know, I think just to recap on a couple of points that I set out before, and that hopefully you've seen from the demonstration that Dave gave and from Chris's comments, is that, you know, firstly, what does Clipp'd do? You know, we're trying to show you all of your players' golfing activity on and off the golf course, in the gym, you know, at rest, at play, in one platform, fusing that data together and running it through our technology to give you that single source of truth through hopefully an easily digestible number. Secondly, we obviously, you know, hope that leads you to be able to immediately understand your player at a glance. We get so often the feedback that I run from, you know, lesson to lesson. I have 2 seconds, 2 minutes to try and understand a player before I then join them on the lesson team. Well, actually, we hope that dashboard, that team roster dashboard, gives you that opportunity to actually to digest very quickly how are they getting on, and then to start that objective conversation with them. I think point 3 would be, you know, it's fundamental for you to be able to stay connected with your players, with your clients, from a revenue perspective, from a relationship perspective, from an engagement perspective. If we can continue to do that in terms of serving you, then we think that is hopefully a huge win, because to Chris's point, sometimes it's very difficult, and we know you've had a long winter where you're all at. You know, you want to maximize every last part of the season that you can. Well, if we can make you more efficient, if we can make your time more productive, more useful, more revenue generative, then that is something that we obviously aim to do. And I think fourthly, you know, that goes all into this personalized, data-driven support for your teaching, giving you an opportunity to deliver the maximum value for for your clients from the technology that you use, from the investments that you might actually be deciding whether to make or not. If we can elevate the value of that and the utility of that, then hopefully the investment becomes more simple and more rapidly additive to your business. And so I think finally, just to go back to that central tenet, that we're here to try and build tools for you as instructors, as it relates to this core idea of helping players to get better faster. That ultimately leads to more enjoyment. It leads to more engagement. We want to show you and players the benefit of a connected game. Ultimately, there is a global community of people that are pretty obsessed about golf, and it's a lifelong journey, and it's one that you start quite often early, and you only ever hang up your clubs when you're kind of forced to. And I think that going back to the idea of we live in a technology-enabled world, well, in this case, from a Clip perspective, we're actually trying to take the technology that exists within the game and within sports and actually enrich the experience through that and through our own platform. So hopefully in terms of the metrics, that makes sense: shot quality, player quality, round insights, what to work on, that feedback loop. But ultimately, we're here to bring everything together in a single platform and provide you with every last tool and resource that we can to help. And that's why we're so excited by these partnerships with the sections, and why we're expanding, very organically from the network that Chris and John Boykin are part of, and many others are part of, into now a much wider universe. So thank you all for listening and for your time. And I think we've got time for Q&A. So we're all ears. And once again, thank you to Chris and John and Catherine for being part of the webinar and for setting things up and setting things in motion. We're extremely excited to get to know you all. And John, going back to our first call, we're extremely excited to continue to build relationships with the section, but also with all of your members. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you as well. I know Catherine put out in the chat if there are any questions from the group. So from the attendees, if you have any questions at this time, please let us know.
I think Kevin had a question, but you're on mute.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is JD. Can anybody hear me?
Everybody can hear you.
Well, thanks. Hey, John. I'm sorry I jumped on late. I would just like to say a couple things. First of all, thank you to the Clip team, and thank you to Mr. Foley for bringing Clip to our section. I think it says a lot when we have such a great new technology coming to our section professionals. And whether you're strictly a teacher, coacher, or not, if you want to be the best PGA professional you can be, you need to know about the technology coming. You need to know that Clip works with multiple technology groups, and that's what really intrigued us. I love the fact that they're partnering with sections, and we do appreciate their support, but we need to start spreading the word on what this truly can do. And as Mr. Foley was talking, I'm just sitting here in my head. I can't see the screen, but I'm thinking about, yeah, even when I tee up the ball, I'm missing greens. What the heck is going on? I need to practice better. So thank you all for your time today. I just wanted to say thank you for the partnership. And as a section, we're ready to help move this forward and educate our professionals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JD. Much appreciated. We're excited as well, and as David said earlier, we'll have more of these now that once the season is underway and gets a little bit more settled. We will be here, and I think we have another date scheduled in the diary for later on in the not too distant future. And then I think our aspiration is to make sure that we kind of try and find an opportune time to jump on a plane and come and sit down with as many of you as we can in person, because at the end of the day, Zoom is great, but we really fundamentally believe, and Chris can attest to this, we fundamentally believe that if we can sit down with people and kind of be together, then that's by far and away the best way to build meaningful and long-lasting relationships, and we're very committed to that process. So thank you, JD, and thank you to everyone else.
Do we have another question maybe from?
I think we've bamboozled everyone, John. I think we've
The English dialect.
yeah. All right. Well, John, just to you quickly, if anyone wants to come back with questions via you, then you know where to send them. Please do encourage as many people as possible to sign up for the next webinar. I know you'll be doing that with JD and with Catherine. Chris, once again, thank you to you. And I think to JD's point, the whole point of the partnership is that we reach as many of your section members as we can. So we will be here in as much of an educational and support capacity as we possibly can be, and we're excited to get to meet more people.
No, that sounds fantastic. We're excited. Like we said, we obviously recorded this, so we'll use this as a tool and resource, not only on our website, but in our education components out to our members, and encourage them to be on the next, the next webinar, and hopefully we'll get a few more and get a few more questions as well. So, but once again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the great opportunity to be partnering with the Minnesota Section PGA. We're very excited. Chris, thank you for being kind of the section ambassador on behalf of the section RPGA members. So John, Dan, Dave, Pierce, the whole team, thank you for everything you've done.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys. Have a
Thanks,
good day.
Chris.
Thank you. Have a great